What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, over the weekend, we finally got a PlayStation 5 preview event where people got to go and actually play the system itself. It wasn't a controlled environment, but they sat the system down seemingly on a table, and people just got to play hours of the PlayStation 5. So we'll talk about that here today because a lot of really cool bits of information came out, including one that seemed to put a lot of people's fears at ease around the PlayStation 5's cooling solution. Also, we have to go over a feature that Microsoft has been talking about for the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S that could work to fix some of the concerns we have right now around the systems with their storage capacity and how large some of these games could get going in next generation. Guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below. And we're gonna start today with Smash Brothers and Master Chief. Yeah, look, Steve got announced, right? So now people are like, who else can be added at this point, right? That's the thought, because that was a big reveal, massive reaction online, and it's like, there's still a couple of fighters still to come, right? What are they gonna do to top this one? And people are just going through all the different things, and they're like, oh, maybe Master Chief. And what's really funny about this is Xbox France decided to get involved, and they tweeted a response here that basically says, we're just waiting for his invitation. So, okay, I guess maybe Microsoft is good with Master Chief going into Smash Brothers, and it wouldn't surprise me. Like, why not, right? If Nintendo comes to you and says, hey, let's get Master Chief in there, we just put Steve, which belongs to Microsoft, that was fine, right? No problem there. Banjo and Kazooie, that's Microsoft. Let's do Master Chief. But my question is, what game has Master Chief been on Nintendo's platforms at all for the history of Nintendo, and what ties does he have to Nintendo? None yet. There was, that, of course, that rumored Halo game that was being developed for the DS, but we never really saw it necessarily. Like, they didn't come out and show it on stage or at E3 or anything like that, and it kind of got lost to time. Hey, you never know, though. Maybe there is some big thing in the future where Halo, like, somehow makes its way to the Switch. It's always possible with how Microsoft's going right now, and then I would step back and say, you know what? Why not? Let's get Master Chief and Smash. I mean, really, at this point, there's not many other people left that are going to get that reaction like Steve. It's like, maybe Master Chief, maybe Sora, and, you know, maybe Goku. Also, one of the games that we did see during the PlayStation 5 preview events that took place was Godfall, and it's going to be there at launch. So that's at least another launch title to look out for if you're curious about it. But there was one bit of information that popped up. People started to notice, and didn't go over too well online, but you can see the product page for Godfall here, and right below the pre-order now button, you can see it says online play required. Then, of course, PlayStation Plus required for online play. No one's surprised about that, but the online play requirement means that it's always online. So it's gonna function like Destiny, for example, right? Where you have to always be connected to the server to play, even if you're just playing by yourself. It's gonna be something that has to call to the server pretty much constantly. Could be for really anti-tampering when it comes to loot drops, right? They wanna make sure nobody's doing any funny business with that, so it has to call to the server to get a check or maybe randomize there and then come back. That's something that's been speculated on now, but I mean, you look at Godfall and it is like a Destiny type game, so I guess it's not too surprising, but I can see how some people are annoyed when they're hoping they'd be able to pick this up with the PS5 and just play single player offline. Not the case here, it looks like. Oh, and you know, we've been talking about Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered for like the entire year now. We've been waiting for it to get announced like for a while. It keeps popping up on retailer sites, been rumored all over the place. Well, it looks like it's most likely getting announced today, as there is a countdown timer that's gone up for a Need for Speed site. And on top of that, on Twitter, you can see that they appear to have leaked a little early with box shots and everything, even a release date of the 6th of November. So this is indeed going to be an announcement, and then it comes out a month later. Appears to be right around $40. We'll have all the DLC included, and it looks like Criterion is doing this one, which is good because, like Burnout, for example, we had that pop up on the Switch, one of EA's latest racing games there, and that performed well. That was 60 frames per second, all of this. So I feel like this should be a pretty good port for the Switch, and a lot of people have been calling for more EA support on the Switch. So there we go, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remaster. I mean, it was a fun game, so I'll be at least curious about how this remaster turns out. It's a $40 game and all of this, so look out for that. It should get announced sometime today, and then about a month, and it should drop. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're starting right away with the PlayStation 5 events that took place. Basically, Sony had a room that they had set up with lights and all of this, and I guess spots to set up cameras, and they brought different people in to check out a PlayStation 5 that was just standing there on a table. There was some speculation that the PS5 wasn't even used, it might have been a dev kit. It does appear that it was the PlayStation 5 there that was being used. They just had it set up so the cables like went under the table and all of this. Again, if they just sent PS5s to media outlets at this time, like Microsoft is doing with the Xbox Series X, where they're sending that to everyone, it seems right now, there'd be a lot less questioning when it comes to this. But they did all get to go in, and they got to check out the system. They took some very, very high-resolution images of the system itself, and this was like 4Gamer checked it out, a ton of Japanese YouTubers, Dengeki, so there was a lot of different perspectives and opinions on the system, and we got some good information, but we're still missing a few things like the UI itself. As an example, Sony is surely going to want to set that up for their own presentation and reveal, but they did get to play games like Godfall and Astro's Playroom. Astro's Playroom makes a lot of sense, right? Because it shows off the DualSense, and that seemed to be what most of the gameplay was centered around, was that one, as they talked about what the DualSense was able to do, which even included them blowing into the microphone on the controller to do different tasks in the game. There were a few very impressive things here. Visually, sure, it looks good, right? It's something we expect for basically what's a tech demo, really, if you look at it. But they also had the fast loading times on display. So just getting into the game was like 2 seconds. And then from there, if you fell off a platform or you died, it was like a second. There was this little animation that would play where the Astrobot like symbol came up, and then it zoomed in, zoomed out, and then boom, you're right back in the game, which is good because of games like Demon's Souls have it so that you basically respawn very, very quickly in like a second or less. We won't have any time to really scream or smash our controllers. Now, I will say some of the images that were taken of the system itself, it looks pretty good in person. It has a very glossy front, that front black part between the two white panels, very, very glossy. And I'm thinking it will get scratched up really, really easily. But the more I've seen the PS5, the more I'm okay with its look and design. For the most part. It's a big system, right? But one of the biggest parts here, and this is something that people keep asking about, how loud is the system? How hot is the system? Well, everyone that went there and tried it, for the most part, has said it was like whisper quiet, if they could hear it at all. And it was cool to the touch, even after an hour or so of gameplay for Astro's Playroom. And this was in a room, because of all the lights they had set up, that was roughly 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So it wasn't even in like ideal conditions for an electronics that's running a game like Astro's Playroom for over an hour. You'd figured it would get a little louder with some exhaust fan noise, or the sides would get kind of warm. Apparently not, though, for the setup they have inside. Now, I'm really curious how that's going to work out when they do their teardown. Now, there was one other thing that was spotted. The Verge pointed this out. In one of the images, because they're so high resolution, they were able to zoom in. They saw this little latch inside of one of the vents, and people are speculating what that could be. To be honest, it's hard to say, but it could be maybe something you press down with like your thumb or something, and it lets you pull the side panel off. That's the biggest speculation now on it right now, and that would then let you, of course, add an NVMe drive or change one out. So that maybe, but that would of course mean that Sony is allowing people to just rip the side panel off, and that could affect cooling or the circulation of the air and all this. So I don't know. I still kind of think they want it to just be a panel maybe on the bottom or something where it's harder to access or rip the system like in half almost. We also got some pretty cool looks at the DualSense controller. You can see 4Gamer had an image here with 4 different colors for the center light around the touchpad, including purple. Sony's paying attention. And they had the 4 lights on the bottom that will designate which player you are. Of course, 4 different lights, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Good stuff there. Overall, you know what? There was a lot of information here to take in, plenty of video. If you want to see just gameplay video for like hours, just go on any of these YouTube videos, check them out. There's a lot of cool stuff there. And for the most part, I just need Sony to start sending them out to outlets that aren't in this controlled room with Sony staring over your shoulder the whole time. That's when we get the real test for the PS5. But at least this first run, based on the issues around cooling and stuff that people were concerned about, doesn't seem to be there. My PS4 Pro sounds like a jet engine. This will be a welcome change. So, all right, so far, first impressions with the PS5 in person for several different media outlets and YouTubers have been good. Next up, let's talk about the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, as Microsoft talked a bit more about a feature that's coming to both platforms that will kind of help to fix the situation around storage right now. We know there are games that are over 100 gigabytes, no problem. We of course know that there is that memory card you can buy. It's kind of expensive, but it's flash memory, it's NVMe, Gen 4 and all this, so it's going to be pricey, right? We know this now, but if we take a look here, this is the quote that was said to Major Nelson on his podcast. Even beyond the hardware, we've actually made user interface improvements to make it easier for you to manage your storage. As an example, one of the new features that we're adding is actually for, if a title chooses to support it, the ability to selectively uninstall different components of the game. So let's say you play a campaign as an example, and then you want to focus exclusively on multiplayer. If the developers choose to support it, you can actually uninstall the campaign itself so that you can be more in control of how you're actually using your storage, so you really get the most benefit out of the available storage that you have. This was from Jason Ronald, who is the Xbox Director of Program Management. And this isn't necessarily new completely, like the Master Chief Collection allows you to choose which games you want installed, right? So that is at least something that is helpful when it comes to managing the overall size of that game, which gets pretty big because it's all the Halo games, campaigns, multiplayers, all of this. But going into next generation, that is going to be very useful with something like the Xbox Series S that we are expecting to have about 350 gigabytes free when you get the system and the partition happens for the SSD, and of course it takes up storage for its OS. That is the one that's going to need it the most, but there are also a lot of people who might buy something like Call of Duty and they'll install it on their PC. And now it's to the point where you can't install a Call of Duty Modern Warfare on something that is 250 gigabytes or less. You need a bigger SSD than that. And it seems that they don't let you install certain parts of the game only. So like that's a game that could heavily benefit from this, but it's up to the developer, as has been said here. So I'm hoping that Sony has something similar set up, because if it's the same across the board for both systems, they will be more inclined to do that rather than just for like just the Xbox and like the PlayStation doesn't support it. So I'm hoping this is something that gets figured out across, and then we can kind of leverage that to save space. And maybe you buy Call of Duty and you don't want the campaign, you just want multiplayer. That could save you upwards of 40 gigabytes for all we know right now. So here's hoping that is something that just becomes normalized going into next gen. Next up, let's talk about Steve in Smash Brothers, because we did have the Sakurai Presents Steve and Alex, and basically it was like a 40-minute presentation where he just went through all of the different moves of Steve and Alex and showed off all the cool things. And I have to say, when they put a character in Smash now, they really put a character in Smash. Like, they are super creative. Sakurai has some crazy ideas as to how to make this stuff work. Like, we saw that presentation, you actually have to go around and mine different things out of the ground in order to build weapons at a craft table that will spawn near you, or you can move it at will if like it gets, for example, camped by somebody. You can just teleport it around. You have blocks you can drop. It's amazing how different Steve looks from every other character before Steve. And like, who knows what'll happen next for the next character? And Sakurai just keeps surprising me. It is absolutely amazing stuff there. But you know what? Steve at least looks interesting. I like to go back to Smash, right? Whenever a new character comes out and check out the new character to see how much different they are. And like, Steve looks like a whole thing to wrap your head around as it is, right? So that looked great. But we also found out that a Travis Touchdown is probably deconfirmed now as a character, as it's now a costume, a Mii costume in the game. That was a little frustrating for people, myself included. I think it would have been cool to see Travis Touchdown in the game, but I also feel like there would probably not be that big moment where people are like, yeah, it's Travis Touchdown. Nothing like Steve. I feel like a lot of people would have been like, who's Travis Touchdown? That probably would have happened. Let's be honest here. So Suda seemed happy about it, that like, okay, Travis is in some way, there's representation of him in the game. So at least there's that, but they did also show off some amiibo. Check these out. Yes, that's right. A Banjo-Kazooie amiibo. Nintendo is really trying to get me to actually buy an amiibo again. It's been a while. But we also have Byleth and Terry, of course, and those will be coming out in 2021. And first of all, the Banjo-Kazooie one looks amazing. Like, they have like the puzzle piece there, of course. That is the one I'm gonna grab. Sure, Terry is really cool for fans of SNK and all of that. And of course, Byleth for the Fire Emblem fans, but like, come on. Banjo-Kazooie. And then to finish up, we did get the release date for Steve, of course, in Smash Brothers. They'll be October 13th. So yeah, about a week. Next week, you'll be able to grab Steve, but very, very interesting character overall. Some really cool additions, and I'll be curious to see how the Smash community reacts when Steve comes out. Is Steve broken? Is he nerfed? We'll see how this goes down. But again, Sakurai getting super creative, and now I'm even more interested to see who the next character is, to see how much crazier he gets with him. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the RTX 3070, which is a card that people are very interested in because it does get closer to the, I'll just say, quote unquote, budget amount, right, of $500. And video cards, like I said before, have gotten crazy with their pricing, but that 3080 was very, very compelling for a lot of people at its pricing, especially compared to the 2080 Ti, right? And that 3090, that was like, what, like some $1,500? Yeah, no, that's all right. But the 3080 went very, very quickly, and it seemed that a lot of bots were picking them up. Well, it does look like NVIDIA is trying to figure something out with the 3070, as they're even moving the release date of this card back 2 weeks. You can see here, they posted this up on their website saying production of GeForce RTX 3070 graphics cards are ramping quickly. We've heard from many of you that there should be more cards available on launch day. To help make that happen, we are updating the availability date to Thursday, October 29th. We know this may be disappointing to those eager to purchase a GeForce RTX 3070 as soon as possible. However, this shift will help our global partners get more graphics cards into the hands of gamers on launch day. I'm not sure how that will work if the bots are still able to go crazy and buy like 30 of them at a time on a website like Newegg, for example, right? I don't know. This could help them just get more stock out there, as they are saying, sure. But until they get a system in place where it's like one per person and that's it, or they start stocking them more readily available in like even, I don't know, even Walmart's. I mean, Best Buy will at least have them at times, and maybe they'll just have more stock for this. So we'll see, but it has to be pushed back 2 weeks to the 29th. Yeah, that's a little frustrating for people who are hoping to get this card like in a week and a half now. So we'll just have to wait for that one. And of course, we'll see how that goes with the bots online and see if this really does help NVIDIA maybe throw them off a bit, or they have a plan that we don't know about just yet. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Alberto saying, Microsoft and Nintendo getting cozy, Sony getting left out this upcoming gen. Well, Sony signed a deal with Microsoft for cloud gaming and AI development over like the next 10 years or something. So they're doing their own thing with Microsoft as well. But the big thing with Nintendo and Microsoft to prove just how cozy they are getting is if Game Pass finds its way, along with xCloud, onto the Switch. Like, it's cool they do all these collaborations and stuff. You can say, oh, it makes sense for both of them, but like, that is like the ultimate seal right there. If Game Pass, xCloud, all of that gets to the Switch, it would help in Japan, of course, because then Microsoft can introduce more of their Xbox brands onto the Switch for a massive market there. But the question is, would Nintendo want that? Because, well, if you buy The Witcher 3, or if you play The Witcher 3 on xCloud, would you want to then buy it on the Switch? That's the issue there when it comes to business. But that right there would really seal the deal, I think, between Nintendo and Microsoft. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Whether it's the PlayStation 5 events that we saw, was there anything there that impressed you? Or are you just hoping that Sony can maybe start getting some of these out to other outlets so they can do more independent testing away from probably Sony lawyers that were in the other room, let's be real here. And then what do you think about Steve in Smash after seeing the moveset, and who do you think is next? Like, who can top Steve at this point? Let me know, guys, down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.